Welcome back. Now, the court battle continues to unfold as the ANC and the DA engage in legal proceedings over cadre deployment policies. While the DA claimed an initial victory, a recent High Court ruling has shifted the tide in favour of the ANC, raising the prospects of increased transparency in this political controversy. We are now joined by acting editor for Financial Mail, Natasha Marrian, to unpack this in greater detail. Natasha, always a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Hello, Nalo. How are you?
Wonderful, Nat. How are you?
Okay, thanks.
Let's get into this issue. Of course, this issue has gone back and forth. Two High Court rulings recently. One that I think initially gave the DA some confidence and then it took it away. Let's talk about what's unfolded.
Yes, so the DA was really relying on this High Court judgment. It was outstanding for a year, over a year actually. They first argued the case before the High Court in Pretoria last year. And last year, January, and the judgment literally came out last week. So it was a long wait, and the DA was, really counting on this judgment because this was the crucial one. This one was the one which would have declared or not declared the practice of cadre deployment unconstitutional, which the DA argues is the case. But unfortunately, the High Court didn't agree with the DA's arguments on this. And now it's back to the drawing board for the DA. They're appealing the judgment. So it's probably going to go to the appeals court. And I don't think they're going to relent on this matter. So it's still a long way to go.
I want us to be able to have a conversation about the issue of cadre deployment because in my mind, if I think about it, in itself, deploying people who have values or ideas similar to yours isn't in itself a bad thing. But this term cadre deployment comes with a lot of weight, Natasha. Just help us understand this dynamic, because in my mind, the DA would never deploy anybody who didn't mirror their values, who didn't mirror their mandate in either.
Exactly. It's a practice that all political parties practice. In the US, it is practiced. In many European countries, it is practiced. In the Western Cape, it is practiced to a degree as well. In South Africa, it actually worked very well. If you think of people like Lesetja Kganyago, the Reserve Bank governor, who else? Kuben Naidoo, who's the Deputy Reserve Bank governor. All of these, the really good technocrats that we've had, Maria Ramos, Alec Irwin, all of these people were products of cadre deployment. And it was a transformational imperative. And it's completely understandable. And that's what the court actually said. The practice of cadre deployment is not necessarily that unheard of and illegal as such. But what the DA is arguing is that it gave rise to state capture and corruption. The court again doesn't agree with this. They said that the DA has provided no evidence showing the link between state capture and corruption. And the court does have a point there, Nalu, because if you think about those at the center of state capture, say at Eskom and Transnet, Brian Molefe, he was extremely qualified for that job. He's a former Treasury official. He's highly qualified. It wasn't the fact that he was a deployed cadre that was the problem. He had major ethical lapses, not ethical lapses, like he threw it out the window, but allegedly he's on trial. I must be careful there. So Anuj Singh is another example. He wasn't not qualified for the post. Siyabonga Gama, again, highly qualified for the position. So the correlation between state capture and cadre deployment is at best weak. But the DA is now turning its attention to the regional and local level of government on this matter. And I think that's where the real problem lies, Nalu, because the academic research, I actually went back and went down a rabbit hole this weekend, reading academic research about the terrible impact of politics on local municipalities. And that's, I think, where a big problem is going to arise for the ANC. That's where the cadre deployment policy is going to be really exposed and tested, while the negative aspects of it.
David Makhura has been quoted as speaking quite a bit on this issue of cadre deployments, and I think maybe, Natasha, what we're all agreeing on, even the ANC, it sounds like from David Makhura's utterances, is that there needs to be a better separation here between the political and then the business of government. And I'm just wondering if this is something that we're all looking for in the government of the future, in heading into this election. But is the ANC, capable of ensuring that becomes a real thing?
I think 5 years ago I would have said no. My answer would have been no. But there's been significant steps forward on this matter. There's a policy on professionalizing the public service, which has been sort of working itself through the process, and that policy is very strong and actually has an anchor in the National Development Plan on making this line between party and state a lot clearer. Also, working the way the cadre deployment committee of the ANC works. So all these things are on the go. It's a matter of whether the ANC will stick to it, and the ANC will, in fact, implement what it has said thus far. For its part, it sees the DA's stance as an attack on transformation. But the DA does have a point in that the state does need to be professionalized. So there's this to and fro going on, and I think it can only be better for South Africans as a whole, because I think it's exposing the weaknesses in the ANC's policies, and at the same time potentially pushing it to do better.
You also do want to avoid a conversation of whataboutism happening here. But it's also kind of weird, Natasha, that over the last few days, prominent leaders from the DA, or those who have left, have come out to say, well, you have your own form of cadre deployment too, and I've been privy to it. And I'm just keen to also get your thoughts on that, because that tells us that there's a deep issue here, that it might not matter if it's the ANC or the DA or anybody else who's in power here. We may just see this practice, and like you're saying, it happens with governments all around the world. It may just be how it works.
Yes, exactly, Nalu. And obviously the DA in the Western Cape wouldn't want someone who's not aligned with its policies to be heading up its administrations. It makes perfect sense. So yes, I would imagine that the DA practices something similar in the Western Cape. I mean, a lot of political parties do. If you look at Ekurhuleni municipality, where the EFF is now in quite a prominent role, there have been many appointments made that are aligned to the EFF's vision. In the city of Johannesburg, the areas run by the Patriotic Alliance, the same goes. So I think this whataboutism is not helpful. I think what we need to do is focus on professionalizing the public service. How do we do that? What are the standards and measures that we need to do that, instead of throwing mud at each other when we're all doing the same thing?
Well, I just hope this is all democracy and maturing, Natasha. Thank you so much for your time. So. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. That was acting editor for Financial Mail, Natasha Marrian.